Hi guys, so welcome to a new podcast episode of Ukraine Confidential. I'm with Paul, the co-founder, and today our guest is Yaroslav. So hello Yaroslav, could you start by introducing yourself?
Hello for everyone. Nice to meet you here. I don't know, it is okay to say nice to meet you in this time and the reason why are we meeting here. But by the way, my name is Yaroslav Rasputin. I'm a gay activist and gay blogger from Russia. Now I'm a refugee. I live in another country, in Georgia or Sakartvelo. Sometimes it's called not for exonym, but the local name is Sakartvelo in Tbilisi. What can I say? Of course, I'm anti-war. Can I say that I am anti-war activist? I think not so, because all my activism was hidden, like stickers with anti-war things around the metro station in Moscow.
Could we go a little bit slower because you touched so many questions and I would like to ask you more details about what you're talking about because just a few words. Yaroslav and we worked together for quite a while in Stavropol region, and I haven't seen him for 5 maybe more years, and I'm really curious.
Yes, yes.
I'm really curious to find out about. Well, I escaped from Russia many years ago, but Yaroslav. So let's I want to go deeper into your story, and I have so many questions for you. So the first of all, what was the last things that you were doing in Russia
The last things
before
was
you escaped?
I was work in AIDS Center Foundation. It is non-profit organization in Moscow and in St. Petersburg and Nizhny Novgorod. How to say Nizhny Novgorod in English? Sorry. It's about AIDS and HIV infection. We was helping people who live with HIV and helping to prevent HIV to target group like LGBT peoples, the men who have sex with men, the transgender women, and so on. Narco users, for example. The last 2 years, I was working in this organization. It's
Okay, and how? Okay, you had just your lifetime there. Some you worked there, and this is actually sort of how your life changed when the war began. Like how during the first month, I assume again I haven't been in Russia for many years, but I assume that the regime was changing. So could you describe, okay, you were working in this transgender, gay community, gay-related stuff, and LGBT, and okay, before war it was okay, but
it's
has
okay. It was hard before war. You know that. Firstly, war wasn't started in 2022. War was started in 2014 when Russia occupied Crimea and came to Donbass and Lugansk region. And war was slowly, but there was a war in this area. And Russia was into this war all this time. And all this time, the regime was trying to destroy any people who think not like regime, not like Putin or another illegals. And it was worse and worse from year to year. And as LGBT activist and blogger, I can say about my community that starting 2013 in Russia was a law which banned LGBT propaganda. And starting this year...
Excuse me, when Russia banned LGBT propaganda, when it happened?
Firstly, in one region, it happened in 2006 year, in Ryazan region. In the whole country...
2006, 2006, where? In what region?
Ryazan region.
In Ryazan, really?
Yep.
Wow, I didn't know.
Yep. The next step was Astrakhan, next St. Petersburg, and...
St. Petersburg, no way. The most progressive city.
Not so much. Yep, it was the year ago before it was banned by all the country in 2012, and in 2013 it was banned by the Russian law on all the Russia area.
And how did it affect your work, your life?
In
the ban?
This year, when it started, I wasn't work in a non-profit organization. I was journalist. Next, I was legal. I was work in regional ministry. Then I was work in commerce. It wasn't touch me directly, but as a gay man, I was feeling it in the air, how to say, that it is not okay to be gay in Russia, and when it's so far away from now, I try to remember what I feel about it, but it was in parallel when Russia started to ban LGBT voices. And when Russia started to kill Ukrainian citizens, it was the same year, 2013 and 2014, and step by step.
Okay, but I don't understand. The LGBT propaganda. Yeah, sorry. The LGBT propaganda was banned before the war started, like in something.
Yes, before. Yeah.
Okay, and you managed to work in some LGBT-related HIV centers or something, non-government organization. So how you managed to do this? Like, how did it affect your job? You sort of could continue to help HIV people, and transgender, but still under the ban of LGBT propaganda. You could do this.
This law is. We will try to continue our work, but this ban wasn't help us to do it, because that LGBT plus people are the ones who need more help with the HIV epidemic. We try to be legal. We try to not to have problems with the government, and we wasn't an LGBT propagandist, but we try to have relations with the LGBT plus community. It was hard because there is, I think, two ways. You are with government, or you are with the LGBT plus community, and when you try to be on the both way, you will fail. And we was trying to do it, and this organization trying to do it now, but mostly it close to regime, not to LGBT plus community.
So sort of couldn't reach out to LGBT plus people. So you obviously needed to reach out people who are affected by HIV, and most of them are LGBT plus, and many of them. And because of this ban, you couldn't do this.
We could do this, but we couldn't say about this. This law is about propaganda, not about the work, not about how to help people, not about medicine. But now there is a law about banning transgender at all in Russia. It is awful. It's awful law.
And how could it look like? I don't understand. How can you ban me to change my gender? How could it be?
There is some legal procedure to change your gender in your passport, in your birth license, both.
Really? And in Russia it was allowed? No. You could go to a passport.
Will be now.
How could someone like restrict me from gender transition? Technically, like
there is a lot of things into gender transition. It's socially transition, and no one can stop you when you try to change your social gender, but you have some legal stuff like your passport, your birth certificate, and the government can change your passport and birth certificate to your new gender, or can not to do this. In Russia, there is legal now to change gender in these documents, but in few months it will be stopped as a procedure. Just.
And what are your thoughts? Why they are doing this? Thoughts? Why they are banning this? Why they are like implementing this new law, preventing gender transition?
So relax. Yep, they try to do it because of narrative that Ukrainian is a satanic and LGBT plus people who attacks Russia for make all Russians a new satanics and new LGBT plus people.
Yeah.
It is official Russians narrative, it's awful, and and they find this agent of Ukrainian Satanists in Russian society and try to kill them, just kill it, because when you are transgender person and your government doesn't give you to change your gender in documents and to have a specific medical care, you will live in horror movie, I can say, and there is a lot of suicide because of transgender people cannot have this care, and this law will ban not only legal procedure with your passport, with your birth certificate, but it will ban the doctor's care. medicinal care, and mostly transgender people need this care to have another body linked with their gender, to have
Identity.
some, yeah, and it's awful, and I can repeat that official government narrative is about the West, and Ukraine is just satanic and LGBT plus, and the government and the senators and the and another legal try to save Russian souls from these awful, horrible LGBT plus people.
So again, this link between Ukraine and LGBT plus problem is sort of, I would like to explore it deeper. So Russia started this war with Ukraine for like several reasons, and somehow Russia, because of that war, became like aiming to far conservative, I don't know, far left, far right, or in both directions actually, but to some extreme like cave level of conservativity, and it affects LGBT plus people. Okay, I want to ask more questions with regard to the last 1.5 year. How the regime by your feeling? So the first question: when have you escaped from Russia? When? How many months ago?
In
December.
Half year ago. Yep. The last show was this law of banning LGBT propaganda in Russia, because I finally lost control over my risk being in Russia, because
how could you elaborate this? What kind of risk did you feel or did you see? How was it growing? Like when the war, you escaped half a year ago. The war is lasting already 1.5 years. So you've been living during this war for around a year. So could you describe your feeling of or evaluation of risk? What was happening?
Of course, when war started, I was on rally. I was in the Pushkin Square and with another people who were trying to stop our government from this war. And the next few weeks, they just make a lot of law for stopping us, stopping people like me who trying to stop the war, who trying to talk about talk about this crime. This war is crime, and it is illegal in Russia now. Say that this war is war. They named it SVO.
What is this war?
A special military operation. They call it this way, not like war. And if you only say that it is war, you can be arrested because of criticism of Russian army. And I was thinking about leave Russia this month, but I think that I can try to be quiet. I can try to help somehow help anti-war activists, and I was trying to talk with people about the war. I was writing about it in my blog, and I was using the symbols of anti-war resistance, and I tried to make some little actions, but I try to be safe in the same time. And in my head, this 1 year was not 1 year. I try to think about what can I do, how can I help, from Russia, and time just go on. And I was still working in this non-profit organization, which still help people. And in Russia, if you work in non-profit organization, you have a specific risk that if the specific risks for non-profit organization workers to make something that will not
break the law.
Yep. Break the law, and if you will be arrested and your organization try to work in Russia, it will have problems with the government, with some structures, and I was trying to be quiet, but so I'm also tried to still acting anti-war as I can. It's not.
Just to make it clear, you while working in the NGO, non-government organization, non-profit organization, you should have been like quiet, because if you were catched by police for like some demonstration or meeting or whatever, you would bring all the NGO under risk of breaking the law and problems with government, and you will bring all the organization.
Yep. And this it is a reason why many NGO in Russia was not talking about war now, but another choose another way. For example, in Russia there is in Russia NGO «Насилию нет». It's an NGO
Stop Violence.
Yep, Stop Violence. And
what therefore?
And the leader of this organization, Anna Rivina, leave the country, and she open talking against war. But as I know, she is not legal leader of this organization now, and the organization still work in Russia. Organization is quiet, and the leader isn't work in this organization, and she tried to help another way.
Okay, but this interesting point. So the organization, which stands for Stop Violence. Okay, what kind of violence they're trying to stop? Or it's more generic. They're standing for some.
It's about family violence. The violence.
Family.
The violence between, for example, men and.
Home violence.
Home violence. Yep. It's not about war violence or anything else.
Okay. Yes. So they still operate in Russia, because home violence is something relate.
And this was the reason why I tried to live in Russia and continue to help people as I can. But I was have a risk because of my anti-war position, and I cannot just shut up about this war. I was living in Moscow. It is the biggest city in Russia, and if you live in Moscow, there are a lot of people in Moscow and in St. Petersburg and in other cities.
Actually, it was one of my next questions. Could you tell more about your communication with people in Russia? Like, okay, you lived in Moscow, or you might visited all other cities like St. Petersburg, which I'm actually really curious about too. So, could you tell more about your communication, about people in some supported war, so some were against war. Could you describe the Russian society?
Firstly, I wasn't finished about previous question why I
Yeah, please go on.
So as I say, if only I was have a problem with law about my anti-war position, it will make a problem for my organization. And the next step, another law which banned LGBT propaganda, and I am the one who is LGBT propagandist, and it is the second point, second reason why government can see me and kick me out from the organization and make a problem for organization. So I bring the decision to break my relations with this organization. I love it. It's maybe not best, but it is a good organization with war's leader Anton Krasovsky. He is propagandist, pro-war propagandist, and he is war crime. But it's a different stuff. Anton Krasovsky and organization he found. Sorry. And when it comes, this law was started to be legal in Russia, and I was starting to be illegal in Russia. There was two reasons to have a problem, and I just left the country. It wasn't so easy, but there was an opportunity for me from my new job. They helped me, and now I live in Tbilisi. And you asked about what happened, how is people in Russia now, and my conversation with them. And it is a hard question for me. Most of my close people in Russia just left Russia, and part of my close people, mostly family, was stopped to be my close people because they support the war. And there is a few close people in Russia who still live in Moscow, for example, or in Stavropol. And time to time we communicate, but it's short, occasional. We all are depressed by this war. My close people, they wish victory for Ukraine. They want to follow Putin, follow Russia, and our communicate is the safe space for them to say it openly, because it is hard to say it in Russia now. I don't know actually, but I think that Western people doesn't understand what is the repression in Russia. A few days ago, one man was died in prison. He just come out in one of the Russian cities with the anti-war banner. He was alone, and there was no.
But I'm curious, why has he died? For what reason? Like, okay, he was put in prison, but why has he died in prison? Like some medical reason?
Maybe you know, maybe you don't, but I think you know about Gulag. It was in USSR, and some methods from Gulag are just continue in these days prison in Russia. And
okay, just again, for what particular reason? I'm just curious, actually, from medical point of view. Like I heard about Gulag, but I've never read the book written by. Oh, actually, it's embarrassment that I forgot his name. Okay, you got it. So why? How do they kill people in prison?
As his lawyer said, maybe this man was tortured to death in prison. It was not a prison. How to say? In Russia, it calls SIZO. It's before some people go to prison.
Yeah, when it is temporary when you put people into I don't know how to say it in English. I think that in most cases they just avoid this. But yeah, this whatever prison is a good explanation. Yeah.
One or two years ago, I think, it was a big scandal when some activists in prison, and it's around all the country, all the Russian prison. There are a lot of torture, there are a lot of violence in prison. Not only in prison, in this place called SIZO 2, I don't know how it's called in English. And it's, how to say, people knows about it. Nobody tells, but all knows. It's like about the war before 2022. Everyone who I was asked about was known about that Russians military are in the Ukrainian area, in the Lugansk and Donbass. But when the camera is on, those people said there are not our militarists there. And with prisons, it was the same thing. Mostly people know that the prison isn't a safe place, that you can die in prison, you can be tortured in prison, and so on. And they're afraid of it. And when in your country is a lot of law to put you in prison for no reason, it is a toxic fear, I can say, to make something, to do something, to say something. So it was hard to understand and hard to tell that the Russian society is poisoned by this fear. And when some people ask, why do you just, why don't you just stop this war? Why don't you just kick the Putin from the Kremlin? It is hard to explain how it happened that the Russian society is afraid of doing something. And I remember we had a conversation about this thing that mostly people in Russia love this war or something else, and I can say that it's worse. There are not a majority of Russians who love this wars. There are majority of Russians who have excluded this war in Ukraine from their worldview. They just try to think that there are not interesting here, that there are nothing happens, just nothing happens. They try to think this way. Some of them afraid of the pain of awareness, I can call it. Some, and I think mostly, fear of repressions and fear of prisons, and they fear to die in prison or before prison. And it is just a simple way to save your brain from this collapse. When you understand that it is war, it is crime, it is bad things, it is evil, and in another hand, you try to save yourself, you try to save yourself, and when you try to understand both these concepts, your brain can just collapse.
Yeah, so they just pretend it is not happening. Could I ask you a question? You just touched an interesting point, which I noted very quickly, about Anton Krasovsky. Okay, I understand that the thing he's doing with the thing his organization is doing with regard to HIV people is like one thing, but he's gay, he's openly gay, but he's also like a war propagandist from Kremlin. So I'm not interested in he's like a person, but I'm interested in people like him who, on the one hand, obviously affected in the worst way by the regime, but on the other hand, I assume that dependent on money or like status or like anything else, everyone has his own reason. So could you tell me more about people like him who work for regime at the same time like being openly gay?
There are not so many openly gay in Russia, or mostly it is closed gay, and you know there are a lot of closet gay in Russian politics or in Russian popular scene, and one hand it's a bad idea to outing these people, but in another hand there are a lot of outing of these people. Many journalists say it, so I can say it too, that people like Philip Kirkorov, Sergei Lazarev, Nikolai Baskov, who staying in one scene with Vladimir Putin and sing the song about Russian victory in this war, are also gay, but in closet. And I don't know, maybe they just afraid of something. There are a lot of reason to be afraid in Russia when you are gay. maybe they just love this money, and there are a lot of money for those who are propagandists of this war. Maybe another reason. And when the war was starting in the Urals, I don't remember in which city specifically, but as I remember, it was in Urals. Some LGBT organization, LGBT service organization in this city, just saying in their media, the social media, that they support Putin, support his war, being gay, being LGBT organization. It shocked me, but in a few months they was closed. I don't know why. I was never been in this city. I don't know who are the leader of this organization, but they try to support Putin and his war. But the fact that they are gays maybe isn't linked with this way to support Putin. Anton Krasovsky is a unique situation. I don't know why. I don't know how. Maybe no. So I don't know how. There are a lot of, not a lot, but there are some gay people in Russian propaganda, but if they will come out, they will be kicked by their media. And Anton Krasovsky is a unique person who lead their one organization, his one media, and doing this awful stuff. How? I just don't understand how to how it works. Why?
I think that you just touched a point that the legal system in Russia is sort of built in a way that, as you say in Russia, the strict laws are compensated by being not necessary to be obliged for it. So, in other words, on one level, there are a legal system which regulates some area of living. For instance, we are talking about LGBT stuff. But on the other way, if you work for Kremlin, if you're okay with the regime, you are not touched by the law. So the law is applicable only for those who sort of trying to deviate from the line of the regime. And it's actually not about LGBT only. This is about almost anything. So this is how the system is working. Okay.
It's totally like it, like Ramzan Kadyrov is another exams. There is a ban for personal
mercenaries, people who fight for money.
Yep. The
mercenaries
are banned in Russia, but if you are Ramzan Kadyrov or if you are Mr. Prigozhin, you can, if you are close to Putin, you can have your one army, and no one can say you anything about it.
Okay, we don't have much time, so let's. I would like to highlight a few, actually, three more questions. First, very quickly, you mentioned that someone helped you to leave Russia. So, just a few words. Like, it is not an easy decision to leave the country. Like, you have some money income there and like friends and so on. So just could you describe very briefly how you managed to change the country of living?
I changed the work, and my new work sent me invitation for some events, and and people who organize these events was buying the tickets for me, and they buying tickets from Moscow to Antalya in one way, and from Antalya to Tbilisi in another way. I wasn't buy a ticket for myself, and I has a little bit of money because of when the war started. I was buy, opposite is sell. I was selling my flat in Stavropol. It was a little flat with a credit, hypothec, how to say, and I just most of this money I give to a bank for close my credit, but I have a little little bit of cash to start in rent the flat here and to live some month. And now I work online and try to pay my bills here by this work.
Okay, and the last questions. So, have you managed to read about our project and find out that we are making a documentary about, well, to some extent, people like you and like about the war and how it affects people's lives. So, have you managed to read a little bit about Web3, about NFT space, and because
only a little bit. As you see, I have a problem with my English, so maybe I don't understand mostly all this information, but I was trying to read it.
Okay, so with regard, you worked as a journalist, and you sort of involved in all this media industry, and based on your perception of media coverage, what do you think is missing? What would you like to like? Okay, if you have NFTs and you have a voting power to direct the documentary about the Russian-Ukrainian war, what is missing here in the coverage? What would you like to highlight in the documentary? What is your message? What do you think is missing in media nowadays?
There are a lot of things I think is missing now, but the one I want to talk about is the fact I'd like to focus on the fact how poor pain and a sense of humiliation in Russian society are forcing to make this society being ready for Putin's lie, manipulation, and fascism.
And how would you? Yeah, and how would you do this? Yeah, what are your ideas? Whom would you ask? Maybe what would your ideas with regard to the documentary film? How would you do the film in order to illuminate the problem which you just mentioned?
I'm not a filmmaker to say how.
Yeah, but anyways, what kind of people and questions would you highlight? Would you ask? Would you maybe go to? Yeah.
I have one point. It's not directly about your questions, but I have it. As I see, as I was see where I was live in Russia, the Russians citizens, the Russians people have not enough silence in the on the air. So much propaganda around them all the day, all the time, and they just don't hear their one thoughts. And I think that maybe if we will try to speak with them, they can feel it like another propaganda. They can feel it like another propaganda, and maybe I would try to make mostly silence film with the scenes of war, scenes of what happens after war, scenes of what happens in Russia, not linked with propaganda, but how the people in Russia live, as I say, poor, full of pain, in this time when Ukrainian citizens was died, and I think that if they can see this both picture at the same time, maybe it can help them to start the process of thinking and to have they once think about what happens. And maybe I think there is a chance that in the next step they can hear the concessions, and maybe they can start to maybe they can start to be empathic to themselves and to Ukrainian citizens, but I think they need to have some silence.
Yeah, but anyways, you believe that you could find a base with them, which you could start building your how to say it, when you could start building your agreement, and based on this basic human things agreement, you could show them that war is something terrible, and build empathy, and so I sort of believe that you can do this, that you could reach their inner soul when you just really could start meaningful conversation.
I think that that people can understand the things only after they can start to understanding something. In Russia, there are so much of propaganda, so I think that most of people just used to have not their opinion. They can hear the propaganda and they can say the same thing as the propaganda say for them, sorry. And I think that it needs time to clean the society from propaganda, and maybe some of Russian can start to grow up from this childhood child mind to adult mind, to understand how to live, understand how to feel, understand how to understand, not how to listen only propaganda.
Very much for all that you shared. I was listening, it was really touching, and it's very important to shed the light on this, because some people like me, we don't know what's happening, you know. Because me, I lived in Moscow, I love Moscow, but I've never endured or knew everything you said. So thanks again also for having the bravery to speak up, because I think that it might not be easy, and we might also take some risks by doing so. So I really appreciate and look up to your courage.
Thank
to
you very
do
much.
this.
I think we also have a responsibility as a society in Russia for this war, but we was talking about it with Paul, that this responsibility is not the equal for some people who just try to live their lives, and for some people who manage this war, manage this propaganda. But by the way, I have my responsibility too. The fact that it was hard and dangerous to live in Russia, it not make me an angel. I still have it, I think. Thank you very much.
But it's not your fault. Everything that happened wasn't your
Thank
fault.
you very much.
Yeah, sure. So my question was about the lesson. If you had an opportunity to influence on the Russian society, what would you do differently? How would maybe you would like to say a word to the younger generation?
In Russia, we love to teach young people so much, and I think that in future, it's the young people are those who should teach the elders about compassion, about mercy, about peaceful life. Not me, they.
Yeah, great.
I think we covered everything, and when you went off, I thanked Yaroslav for being brave enough to speak up, because it might not be easy, and he also might risk his life for doing so. So I really appreciate, and I prefer staying silent because I don't know what you've been through, but it was really insightful for me to learn about it, because as I said to Yaroslav when you left, I went to Moscow, I loved Moscow, I loved the people I met, but I never knew this part of the country. So thanks again for speaking up on this really important